Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into the world of Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, this is going to be good.
We're going to be exploring his personal writings, meditations, to uncover some timeless wisdom. Think resilience, perspective, and inner peace, all from a guy who ran the Roman Empire.
Imagine the pressure he faced, right? Wars, plagues, political turmoil. Talk about a stressful job.
And yet, amidst all that chaos, he found strength in philosophy, specifically Stoic philosophy.
Yeah, the Stoics were all about controlling what you can, letting go of what you can't.
So it's not about avoiding challenges, it's about facing them with the right mindset.
Exactly, and that's where resilience comes in. There's this quote I love from Meditations, Book 6. Marcus Aurelius writes, "The matter itself of which the universe doth consist is of itself very tractable."
Tractable, not a word you hear every day.
I know, right? It basically means manageable, moldable. He's saying the universe, with all its ups and downs, isn't inherently against us.
So it's our perception, our resistance that makes things feel overwhelming.
Totally. Think about how much we stress over things we can't control.
Oh, all the time. Deadlines, traffic, what people are saying on Twitter.
Right. But Marcus Aurelius is suggesting we look at these things as tractable, as something we can work with.
So instead of freaking out, we try to adapt, to shape the situation.
That's the heart of Stoic resilience. And remember, Marcus Aurelius was living this every day as emperor.
Okay, but how did he actually apply this tractable mindset? Did he just sit back and watch the empire crumble?
No way. Stoicism isn't about inaction. It's about choosing your battles wisely.
So he still had a duty to his people, to the empire.
Absolutely. But Stoicism gave him a framework for making clear-headed decisions, even when things were crazy.
It's like he had this inner compass guiding him through the storm.
Precisely. He wasn't ruled by panic or fear. He was able to step back and choose the most effective action, even when those choices were tough.
This idea of focusing on what we can control, that seems so crucial to his resilience.
It's huge. And it applies not just to external events, but also to our own thoughts and emotions. Which brings us to another key Stoic principle, the dichotomy of control.
Okay, break that down for us. What's the dichotomy of control all about?
Basically, it's understanding that some things in life we can directly control.
Like our thoughts, actions, our choices.
You got it. And then there are things we can't control.
The weather, other people's opinions, the outcome of a game.
Exactly. And realizing this can be so freeing. Think about it, how much stress comes from worrying about stuff we have absolutely no power over.
Oh, way too much. I'm a champion worrier, especially about things that haven't even happened yet.
And that's where the Stoic approach can help. Instead of getting trapped in worry, Marcus Aurelius says we should shift our focus to what we can control, our own responses, our choices. He writes in Book 8, "If thou canst but withdraw conceit and opinion concerning that which may seem hurtful and offensive, thou thyself art as safe may be."
So if we can detach from our opinions about things we can't control,
We can find a sense of peace and security even when things around us feel chaotic.
that's a pretty profound idea, especially in today's world where we're bombarded with information and potential threats.
It's so easy to feel overwhelmed, right? But if we can remember to focus on our own responses, on what we can do.
We can start to reclaim a sense of agency, even when things feel out of control.
Exactly. It's not about being passive. It's about choosing where to direct your energy.
Choosing your battles.
You got it. So how do we apply this to our daily lives? Let's say I'm freaking out about a presentation at work.
Oh, I know that feeling. Big presentation feels like your whole career is riding on it.
Right. So the Stoic approach would be to first acknowledge that the outcome is not entirely in your control. You can't control how your boss will react or if every slide will go perfectly.
But I can control how well I prepare, how I deliver the information, and how I handle any tough questions.
Exactly. By focusing on those things, you're taking ownership of the situation, you're acknowledging what you can influence and putting your energy there.
It's like that saying, control the controllables.
Right. It sounds simple, but it's a really powerful shift in perspective.
A shift that can lead to a lot less stress and a lot more inner peace.
And that's something we'll explore more next time, because Marcus Aurelius has some fascinating insights on how to find that peace amidst the chaos of life.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I think we could all use a little more inner peace, especially in today's world.
Absolutely. And Marcus Aurelius, even though he lived centuries ago, offers some surprisingly relevant wisdom on that front.
Okay, so we've talked about resilience, about facing those challenges head on, and we've talked about focusing on what we can control. But how did Marcus Aurelius actually find inner peace? I mean, the guy was running an empire.
Right, talk about pressure. Well, he had a practice that might seem a little unexpected at first. He would contemplate death.
Whoa, hold on. I thought we were talking about inner peace, not existential dread.
No, hear me out. It's not about being morbid or dwelling on death, but using it as a way to see what truly matters. Like in Book 4 of Meditations, there's this powerful passage where he talks about all these accomplished people, physicians, philosophers, even kings and entire cities, and he points out that they're all gone now.
So it's like, in the grand scheme of things, our worries are kind of small.
Yeah, exactly. By contemplating our own mortality, we're not dismissing our problems, but putting them in perspective. It helps us see that our time is precious. We shouldn't waste it on things that ultimately don't matter.
So instead of stressing about that email from my boss, I should be focusing on, like, spending time with my family or pursuing my passions.
You got it. It's about shifting our priorities, recognizing what brings true and lasting fulfillment, not getting caught up in the day-to-day stuff.
I see. So it ties into controlling what we can. We can't control how long we live, but we can control how we spend our time.
Absolutely. And this leads us to another important theme for Marcus Aurelius: self-discipline.
Uh-oh. That word usually makes me want to run and hide.
Huh. I know, right? But the Stoics didn't see discipline as a punishment. They saw it as a way to become stronger, to be our best selves.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. When we lack self-discipline, we're basically at the mercy of our impulses. We procrastinate, we eat that extra slice of cake.
We scroll through social media for hours.
Exactly, we get sidetracked.
Mm.
But self-discipline is about taking control, aligning ourselves with our values and goals.
So it's about making conscious choices, even when it's hard.
Exactly. And it can be hard, but it's worth it. There's this great quote in Book 5 where Marcus Aurelius is basically giving himself a pep talk in the morning. He's like, hey, staying in bed would be nice, but I was made for more than this. Time to get up and do the work.
He's like his own personal cheerleader.
Right. And he's not being hard on himself, just acknowledging that urge to stay comfy and then redirecting his attention to his purpose.
Okay, I like that. So it's not about denying our feelings, but about choosing how we respond to them.
Right. It's about being intentional with our actions, our time, our energy.
Which brings up a big question. What kind of work are we choosing to do? Are we spending our lives on things that actually matter to us?
That's a question we all have to ask ourselves. Are we living in a way that feels authentic and meaningful?
It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And this is where the idea of integrity comes in, which is another big theme for the Stoics.
Okay, so we've got death, self-discipline, and now integrity. How does that all fit together?
Well, for the Stoics, integrity wasn't just about being honest. It was about living in alignment with your values, even when it's tough. Doing the right thing, even when no one's watching.
Walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And in Book 10, Marcus Aurelius talks about living in accordance with nature.
Nature? What does that have to do with integrity?
He's not just talking about trees and mountains. He's also talking about our human nature, our ability to reason, to be compassionate, to be just.
So to live with integrity is to embrace those qualities and let them guide our actions.
Right. It's about recognizing our place in the world, how we're all connected, and how our choices affect others.
And that idea is so relevant today, don't you think? I mean, we're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us to prioritize ourselves, to take shortcuts, to compromise our values.
It's true. It can feel like a constant battle to stay true to ourselves in a world that often rewards, not so great behavior.
So how do we cultivate that sense of integrity? How do we actually live it out?
It starts with knowing what you truly value. What principles are you willing to stand up for? And then it's about making choices, even small ones, that reflect those values.
It's about those everyday moments where we have a chance to do the right thing.
Exactly. And over time, those choices shape who we become. They become the foundation for a life that feels authentic and meaningful.
It's really amazing that we can still learn so much from someone who lived almost 2,000 years ago.
Right. His world was so different from ours. But the challenges he faced, the questions he grappled with, they still resonate today.
It's like he's speaking directly to us across time, giving us guidance on how to navigate life.
That's the power of philosophy, isn't it? It helps us understand ourselves, our place in the world. It gives us these tools to deal with whatever life throws at us.
So for our listeners out there who might be feeling overwhelmed by the pressures of modern life, what would you say is the most important takeaway from Marcus Aurelius?
That's a good question. I think a lot of his wisdom boils down to focusing on what we can control. It's so easy to get caught up in things that are totally outside of our influence. The news, what other people think, the ups and downs of life.
Yeah, it feels like we're constantly bombarded with stuff that just makes us anxious.
Exactly. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us that we actually have a choice. We can let all that external stuff control us, or we can choose to focus on what we can influence, our own thoughts, our actions, our responses.
So it's about taking ownership of our own inner world.
Yes. Recognizing that true freedom comes from mastering our minds, not letting ourselves get swept away by every little thing.
And that's where things like mindfulness come in, right? Taking the time to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment.
Exactly. It's about creating that space between our thoughts and our reactions so we can choose a more skillful response.
It reminds me of that quote from Book 8, where Marcus Aurelius talks about withdrawing our conceit and opinion from things we can't control.
Oh, that's a good one. It's about realizing that a lot of our suffering comes from the stories we tell ourselves, the judgments we make.
It's not about ignoring reality, but choosing where we focus our attention.
Exactly. It's a practice. It takes time and effort to shift our perspective, but it's so worth it.
So, any advice for our listeners who are just starting out with this? Where do they begin?
I would say start by simply noticing your thought patterns. What are the things that trigger your anxiety? The stories you tend to tell yourself. Just becoming aware of those patterns is a huge first step.
So it's about becoming more mindful of our own internal dialogue.
Right. And then gently start to challenge those thoughts. Are they really true? Are they helpful? Or are they just based on fear or assumptions?
We don't have to believe everything we think.
Exactly. And when we start to question those thoughts, we create space for a different response. We can choose to focus on what we can do. We can practice gratitude. We can remember that this too shall pass.
It's about remembering that we have the power to shape our own experience, even when things are tough.
And that's a really empowering message. We're not victims of our circumstances. We can choose resilience. We can find meaning, even in the face of adversity.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of Marcus Aurelius. Hopefully everyone listening has found it as insightful as I have.
Absolutely. It's been a great conversation.
And remember, everyone, this is just the beginning of your own exploration. Keep diving deep, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep striving to live a life that truly reflects your values.
Until next time.